Hey folks, Bill here. I wanted to kind of go through my fishing stories up to this point. Just kind of tell you kind of what led to where we are now. So, if you're interested, stick around. My experience with fishing up to this point had been going once with my dad, and I think we went somewhere where it was that mixture between where the saltwater meets freshwater or something like that. It was most likely salt. The reason I say that is because I know that we weren't far out there and you could, possibly hear the ocean in the distance. It's been years. Years. I mean, I was a little kid. And we used hooks that were like, they're the size of like the one on this hat, right? And it would have a piece of squid about an inch by an inch. And we would just not really cast it. We would just like drop it on the like right below the surface of the water, and we were just watching the fish just nibble at this giant piece of squid. Because at the part of that dock slash pier walkway that we were on, it was like just bait fish. There was nothing crazy. Um, Essentially, we didn't catch any fish. We kind of fed the fish, and it was funny because um, not what I was expecting, but it is what it is. And I don't remember too much more about it. I remember that was the first time, and I didn't really touch it much. Um, After that, it was when I was a teenager. I had gone with one of my friends, my one of my friend's sisters and her fiance, and we'd gone to a pier. I think it was the Fort Lauderdale pier, the pier by the sea, which is closed right now. It was destroyed from the hurricane, from what I understand. So unfortunately, you can't go back there right now. But anyway, we went out fishing. I remember I had like gel in my hair, and I had like no sun protection, and like the gel got like crusty, and it was a miserable physical experience, but it was an interesting experience nonetheless. Um, I remember we mostly brought freshwater rods, if I'm not mistaken, and this time we did have sabikis in the water, and we were catching some bait fish, and unfortunately, I think a bigger fish. We couldn't tell what it was. A bigger fish came and then took one of the sabiki, like one of the fish off the sabiki, or rather, he ran off with the sabiki with the fish on it. And I remember that the sabiki had a line spooled that was more than this freshwater rod could handle. So when we put the line on, I don't think I was thinking about that. I think it was just whatever I had from when I was a kid, and that's just what I had left over. So that's the line that was on it. But essentially, the rod snapped. I remember that. I remember the rod snapped, and we didn't really catch much the rest of the day. But we were having fun catching just the bait fish and that we had there. So I was enjoying it. I had a blast either way. Um, and I didn't touch it much, right? Um, and had wanted to after a couple years later. I wanted to get into fishing, and I had no gear at this point because everything was in my friend's fiance's car, and I no longer kept in touch with them. So I had to buy everything all over again, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know what I was buying. So I was kind of just going off of YouTube and just trying to see what I could get uh, that was affordable, like entry level thing, sub 200 or 150. I don't remember what my budget was at that point. And I bought two rods, the two that you see right up there at the very top. It's an ugly stick and something else. Let me see if I can tell. They're kind of like, this is not a really a great rod holder. Give me a sec. Yeah, it's an ugly stick and a Matsuo. Um, and I just had a bunch of freshwater tackle, just like a bunch of freshwater tackle. And I remember watching this guy. His name is Adamit Shalanu. He's on YouTube. He called himself Uncle Steve, and he had a lot of fishing videos. And it was peaceful, you know. He caught a lot of crappie and a lot of other fish, and I always wanted to do something like that. So I watched videos like his, and I think even first date fishing at that time. And I just kind of felt bummed about just doing it by myself. I don't know. Like I always felt like some things that were worth experiencing with others. Um, so I never took the initiative to go out and do it with other people. And the gear just sort of sat there for years, like literally up until of February 7th, which was like the one that just passed. Which brings us into like how all got started and where we are here. In in January, I think we were pretty set. We had talked about it in November of 2024, and we had pretty much said it that Mike was going to come over. And we were just going to it was just going to be a chill weekend, you know, we just relax for a couple days. And there's some things that we needed to get done, and one of the things I wanted to do with my buddy Mike was go fishing. So I brought anything and everything I had that was related to fishing that I owned, and I packed it all in the car because I didn't know what I would need. And there I am. I'm wearing a pair of Wrangler all-terrain gear, black with the one cargo pocket on the left, a athletic shirt. So like if you sweat or get it wet, it dries quick. In olive drab, and the hat that you see right over there in the back, the one that's covered by the American flag. So it's like a wide brim hat, and then I had the back cover for your neck, and then I had the face part for your front. And funny enough, I don't mind anything else, but apparently mind, my body minds sunlight. I don't tan, I just burn. So I'm actually burning on my knees right now from like 2 3 weeks ago, I think. We're gonna get to that story in another video. So I had told Mike to kind of dress kind of the same. I gave him a pair of my all-terrain gear pants because I had multiple. He brought his own sports shirt in white, and he had his own hat. It was black and white, kind of like my green one that I have up there. And we set out with our two freshwater rods and a can-do attitude. We walked up to the pier with what we had, and we I remember telling the guy, I was like, listen, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just trying to just enjoy the time in the water. So we went to Pompano Beach fishing pier, by the way, which is the one that you're gonna see in the intros for the most part, because that's usually where I go. That's my local one. So we went to the Pompano Pier, and I told him I didn't know what I was doing. I told him that I needed a saltwater rod, and he kind of asked me, all right, what kind of jig are you going for? Like, what kind of setup you want at the end of your line? I told him I didn't know, whatever he suggested was best. So he kind of gave me an egg weight, loop twice on the leader with a circle hook or an octopus hook. I don't remember, or something like that. And he gave me a bag of sardines, and it came with one bucket, a knife, and a rag. They hold your ID when you rent their gear. And I think that was about it. I don't think I'm missing anything. And we're going out there, and I literally remember getting to the the end of the pier, right before you, like, if you see it from the aerial views on the intro, you're gonna see it looks like a fish. It's essentially a pompano at the end of the pier. So right before you got there, there's a cleaning station, and we'd seen this guy and his wife. I think his name was Louis. I could be wrong. It's been a while. So we're talking to this gentleman, and I tell him, like, listen, I don't know what I'm doing. It looks like you know what you're doing more than I do. Like, this is all the gear I have. How do we get started? Can you show me? And keep in mind, it was me and Mike, but we brought essentially those three rods. We brought two chairs, two lawn chairs. So I had like a $8 Walmart one, and then I had a Coleman one that I've had for years. Um, I can't remember what else, but we brought enough. We brought enough stuff. Like I remember bringing like a cooler. Like we had water. I didn't know what to expect. So I tell this guy, like, listen, I don't know what I'm doing. You look like you know what you're doing. Can you give me any pointers? I don't even know if I know how to cut this bait right, you know? So we're talking to him. He's showing me, we're talking about, like, like how we met each other, and, and where we're from and where he's from. And he shows us how to cut the bait and everything. And we're just setting, excuse me, just setting the hook out there a couple times. And not a lot was biting. And people were telling us that they weren't catching much. So I felt a little bit better. I even had at one point someone asked me, like, "Oh, hey, you're covered up more than people up north," and I was like, "Well, I don't tan very well. I just burn." And in all this craziness, right? I had like I always noticed the people around me, right? And there was this guy. He was like going from place A to B, C, and D. Like he was just all over the pier. But he looked like he knew what he was doing, and he does. He does now. His name is Eric now. I didn't know it at the time. I call him the Shark Man, and I call him the Shark Man because I didn't know his name. So that kind of alludes to the story, right? So we're fishing there, we're doing our own thing, and then all of a sudden, he hooks. No, one of the kids that he was by hooks onto a shark on a 15-pound line. Out of all things, it was not a great. It's not a big shark. It was like maybe 2.5, 3 feet at most shark. And anybody would, most people were just like cut the line, but realistically, you don't want to just cut the line on a shark or any other fish, because then they have to go around with that. So we took on one of the greatest feats that you can on a pier, which is walking down a rod down the pier. So here I am with Mike, and I'm telling him everything that's going on. And I tell him, I'll be right back, right? And I go up to the dude who's walking down this rod, over, under, past the pylons, and, through everything to try to get it to shore. And I go up to him and I'm like, hey, dude, listen, do you need any help? And he goes, yeah. All right. So there I am. And I'm following him. I'm just making sure his footing's right while he's keeping his eye on the rod. We're trying to walk the shark down the pier. We pass it through a couple pylons. And eventually we get it to the edge of the pier. Like if you're looking down the pier, like if you're gonna exit at Pompano on the right hand side, there's gonna be like mangrove looking trees, so you can't really walk down that way. You have to go towards the left, past the Lucky Fish, then the exit that takes you to the beach, then underneath the actual pier, and then you get to the part where they would hand us the rod. The shark just went that way, so we went that way. After that, when we got it to the edge, Eric and I ran down and we got down there and I got on the shark's back just to stop it from moving around so much. Like you don't sit on the shark, you essentially just put it between your legs and you get a low center of gravity and then you hook your feet into the sand. Or at least that's how I learn how to do it. If there's a better way, just leave it in the comments below. So I'm stopping the shark from moving, and once Eric, manages the line and he's got the pliers, we take the hook out of the shark and we put the shark safely back in the water. And I just look at him and I go, not bad for my first time fishing, huh? So walk back up to the pier, and I guess I failed to mention it, but when I walk back up to the pier, and I meet back up with Mike, I was like, hey, listen. And I tell him everything I just told you. I went to go do the thing with the shark. Well, I had stepped in the water because, the shark was close to the edge of the beach. We don't want to put in the sand any more than we had to. So my shoes got all soaked, my socks got all soaked, and there I am trying to, you know, deal with all this. And all of a sudden, I have like a burning sensation on my feet. And I'll tell you why I had a burning sensation. Give me a sec. So the night that my buddy Mike came by, we went to Bass Pro Shop, and I had seen these sandals before, but I wanted to get them because they look fun. So they're they're like $20, and I was like, you know what? I need a new pair of flops. So I got these things. Look at that. I got fish flops. That's what I call them, not flip flops. Fish flops. So I got my fish flops on Thursday, the day before we went fishing. But I had worn them too much at Sawgrass when I was passing by because we had some things to do around that area. And I had gotten blisters all over my feet. Like my foot was worn in certain places. And I was in no condition to keep wearing those flops the rest of the weekend. So I didn't. But when we went fishing, I had already like cleaned my feet. I had already bandaged them, and I had put my socks and my shoes. We went through the whole shark thing, and then my feet are burning because the salt water is getting in the cuts. So there I am, taking my shoes off, taking my socks off, taking the bandages off, and then I'm putting fresh water to clean out all the salt. But I can't put the shoes back on because it's going to wear on my feet, and really wasn't a great idea. So there I am doing the worst idea, which was to walk around the pier barefoot. I didn't get hurt, nothing happened, but there I am walking and stepping on pelican poop, fish guts, and who knows what else. And I'm stepping on all of it, and I'm just sitting there trying to, enjoy the rest of the day. And it really was like, I don't really care about those type of things. It is what it is. It happens. I just thought it was funny because I look over at Mike and I'm like, bro, I'm gonna have to clean the crap out of my feet today, like to no extent. I'm gonna have to disinfect my feet. So I did that. Um, and overall, we had a great time. I don't think we caught much, but we had a good time. And I was like, dude, we gotta go back before you go. Like before you leave back, we have to go there again at some point. And I had made a mental note of it. So we get home, we get everything we needed to get done. It's almost the end of the vacation, and it's Sunday, right? The day that Mike's leaving in the afternoon. So I said, you know what? Let's just get up early. We have to get back on schedule. We can't just sleep in with no alarms anymore. Let's go to the pier. Let's go fishing again. Let's go have some fun. So I think by this point, I had gone to Bass Pro Shop, and I had bought um one of my rods that I have up there is called a Sea Lion. It was on sale. See if I can bring it down. It's the great rod holder. I think it's meant for pool cues, to be honest with you, but it works pretty good. It's just not really easy to take them off. I know that you could stagger the reels like one on each side, but I don't want to take anything off on this side because that's a dead end and it's going to make it harder anytime I have to take things out afterwards. And I want to keep this side clear because I have a bunch of stuff, like all over right there on that wall that I need space for. So that's why I put them all there. But let me see if I can get that rod down. At least bring one up to the screen. Okay, that took a lot longer than I thought. So anyway, let me show you. Uh, Sea lion. And I always put a piece of tape with whatever line I got spooled on it. This is a 7 foot up to 20-pound line, I think. It's a nice rod. Really nice rod. So yeah, I had gotten this rod and I had gotten another ugly stick. I'll bring that one up next. It's nothing fancy from Walmart. There you go. Little ugly stick. This is a two-piece with a collapsible part. So this part here collapses and then it disconnects right up here as well. It's kind of weird, but it works. This is a 7 foot medium heavy action. And something you're going to come to find out about me is I absolutely love white fishing rods. I don't know why. I kind of like the color white in general, and you're gonna see that with just about everything I own. I don't know why. It just really looks welcoming. I don't know. So we had gone out with our rods, and this time we were prepared. I didn't bring the freshwater ones because freshwater rod. So we're out there in the morning, and there's a couple people. Not a lot of things were biting, and Mike and I see this guy, right? I see this guy, and he's casting into the ocean with just weight. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure it out. I hadn't seen that before, but then again, I hadn't seen a lot of things. So I asked him, I was like, what's going on? Like, what are you doing? And he goes, oh, you'll see. And he had a cheeky smile on about what he was doing. And I said, all right, fair enough. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He should know what he's doing. So as it turns out, he was trolling, right? So you cast a line and then you zip line your end down. And brilliant setup the way he does it. His name is Ben. And so we're sitting there, we're fishing, and we're getting to know each other. We're getting to know the rest of the people on the pier and the different characters. And Eric was not at the pier this day. I had bought a couple lures. I think I gave him a gotcha plug and I gave him a spoon from Walmart. Nothing crazy, but I did want to say thank you, for letting me help him. Showing the kids the fish, and just teaching about like conservation methods and just being an informed fisherman. I thought that was really cool. So I wanted to give him a little something, but he wasn't there, so I just kind of held on to them until the next time I saw him. Um, the day went pretty quiet, but towards the end, Ben realized that it was Mike's last day. So Ben gives him this rod for him to, he cast the rod for him. It was an amazing cast. And he gave him the rod, he put it on, he set everything on the reel, and he gave it for Mike to reel it in. And long and behold, boom, he gets a fish. And as Mike is trying to reel it in, the mechanism snaps and it it basically left like the internal axle completely broken, so you couldn't just put another screw end at the end and put the axle back in. The axle itself, the shaft that holds the handle, was gone. So Mike just like turns at me, and then the line is still going because the fish is still taking it. And Mike was just a little concerned about what to do in the situation because it was Ben's rod, his reel. I'm pretty sure nobody wanted to like do anything negative, and um like, what do we do? And I'm like, well, dude, pull the fish up. And then he's kind of like not really understanding what I'm saying. I was like, he hands me the pieces, and I'm looking at it. I was like, I don't need the pieces. Like, they're not gonna go back in the reel. So I was like, dude, you're gonna have to pull this thing up your hands. And he's like, what? So I was like, all right, stand back. Just take the line as I'm pulling it. So there I am pulling line out of the water, out of the water. Ben comes up, and I go, Ben, there's a fish on the line. Ben had walked away. This is gonna be Ben's thing. That's his magic. That's why he's the wizard of the water. He catches fish even when he's not there. So he Mike hands the rod and the reel to Ben, and then Ben starts, just coiling the line on the spool because he didn't know what was going on. And I go, Ben, no, there's a fish on this line, and this is not gonna work, right? So we're getting close, but it's Mike fish. I'm not gonna take that. So I tell, hey Mike, listen, it's your fish, bro. You need to finish pulling this line. And sure enough, Mike pulls in the fish, and it turns out to be a triggerfish. And I'll should be posting pictures as I've been talking of the things that are not in the video. And I essentially he caught a triggerfish. And Ben was not concerned at all about the reel. It had served him for like 2 years, and it had its fair shake. And so um Mike ended that part of the trip on a good note, and we had to leave. We couldn't stay, right? I think we released the triggerfish. I don't think we kept it. Again, you'll see pictures because I do have those. And then afterwards, we had to go. So I tell Ben, it was nice meeting you. If you're still here by the time I come back, we'll touch bases, right? Because like I still wanted to be out on the water, essentially, like on the pier. So we go home, we get Mike set up, shower and everything packed, and we start heading towards the place where he went to go get food and then go to the airport. I call Ben, and I was like, hey Ben, you still at the pier? And he goes, yeah, I'm still at the pier. He goes, all right. Did you eat anything? And I get him some food from Lucky Fish. And when we're there, I had gotten some too because I hadn't eaten much the rest of the day. And we're both sitting out there eating, and we're setting our lines. And his girlfriend calls him, and the whole day had been really quiet. Aside from that triggerfish, it was like dead. Even with goggle eyes and other kind of baits in the water, it was quiet. It's been quiet for weeks here, from what I understand. And as soon as he walks away, and I'm thinking, right? Like he walks away, he's like, hey, I'm gonna talk to my girl. I just need a few minutes. I think he was gonna use the restroom too, et cetera, et cetera. So usually, if you're fishing by yourself, you're kind of watching your fluids and your foods, because if you're fishing by yourself, unless you're gonna willing to take all your gear back out, you're kind of just in the elements, having to hold it because you're at a pier, right? So because I was watching his stuff and it was like a 2-man team, like I can go and he can come back, et cetera. So he says, I'm gonna go step out. I'm gonna talk to my girl. And I go, it's been quiet the whole day. What's gonna happen, right? So I'm talking to this kid while I'm playing with Ben's noodle rod. Um, Field Days calls them noodle rods. They're just like really short rods with really, really light action, and they bend really easily. So we call them noodle rods, and I love that. So I used it. Um, so I'm playing with this noodle rod, and then this kid next to me is reeling in his line, but he looked like he had gotten snagged on the barnacles on the pier, but I couldn't tell if it was something else. And he's like, "No, I think he was just jigging," is what he said to me. And as we're doing that, we just hear the, and it's like, okay, it's a reel going. And then he goes, "Hey, isn't that your buddy's reel?" And then it goes, and I'm going like, oh no. Like, I'm going, oh no, because I don't know what I'm doing. So here I am. Ben stepped away. This reel's starting to screech. I take the noodle rod out of the water. I put that by Ben's things. And then I'm sitting here grabbing this reel, this rod and reel, which I think was his chaos rod and reel, like really expensive stuff. And so he's he's got it set up, and I think it doesn't have the normal setup. It's a little different gear ratio and everything. So I'm sitting there like I'm spooling and I'm spooling and I'm spooling and I'm spooling, but I grab my reels differently. So if you've ever noticed, my reels have the handle on the wrong side because I don't cast with my right and then reel with my left. I cast with my right and then reel with my right. I can't do it the other way. I mean, I can, but it's not comfortable. So I'm reeling, 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 giving it a little, like as the hook had said already. So I'm just watching this thing, and I'm trying to look at where it is in the water relative to where the line is, because I don't want to like pull it in and towards somebody's line. I wasn't sure what I was going to do if it went over or under somebody else's. So I'm just kind of trying to bide my time here, hoping Ben gets back. This is all happening within seconds, right? And all of a sudden, like I see like this silver streak coming out of the water, like just like lightning, but in reverse, just coming out of the water. And I was like, that's a big fish. And I didn't know what it was. So I'm reeling, reeling. I'm watching my line, reeling, reeling, reeling. And then all of a sudden, um, I see Ben in the distance. And I'm like, oh, thank God. So I tell the kid that I'm with, and I go, Ben, I tell him, you see that guy with the blue hoodie? Get that guy. That's his freaking line. And he goes and he runs up to him and he goes, Mister, your line's here, blah blah blah. And he tells him, and then Ben starts walking up, and I'm going like, Ben, it's freaking huge. And then all of a sudden, again, like clockwork, this fish just reverse lightning, boom, out of the water, and it looks like silver streaks. And we slowly bring it up, but we weren't exactly. It was a heavy fish. You weren't gonna bring it up on a fishing rod. And we saw one net on the pier, and later we come to find out it was Ephraim's. I didn't know where Ephraim was, and we didn't want to take the net without asking because there wasn't a pier net there. There is no pier nets at Pompano Beach, unfortunately. So you have to bring your own. So a friend's net was on his cart, but we didn't want to take it without asking him. So I ran down the pier looking for Ephraim, and I couldn't find him. It turns out Ephraim was behind me the whole time, but he was in a different corner. Once he knew that there was a big fish, he landed us his drop net. So essentially, it's just one giant ring with a smaller ring with a mesh net, and then you just have like three lines connected to an actual piece of cord, which is what you pull it up from. So we drop it in the water and we're bringing it up, and it turned out to be like a 36-inch barracuda. Like, we have pictures, so you'll see them there too. And this thing was massive. And I remember us like bleeding it, and then we put the knife in its head to, dispatch it. And there was a kid that came by and he goes, "Is it alive?" And we're like, "Not really. It's got a knife sticking in its head all the way to the hilt, so not really, no." Um, and then I was like, "Ben, how are you gonna take that home? Like, are you gonna like?" I guess we decided he was gonna take it home at this point because he dispatched it, right? I was like, "You're gonna like, how are you gonna get that home?" He's like, "I have no idea. Like, you know, I guess his girlfriend or somebody he knew was gonna come by and pick up the fish, but they didn't come by and they didn't pick up the fish." I do have a car, so the only thing that I was concerned about was like, oh man, like I don't mind helping somebody with their catch. I just don't want to get fish all over my car, like that. I won't get the smell out. So I'm thinking of what we can do, and then we like triple up plus more on garbage bags, putting them like inside the other and inside the other like that, and we put it inside like different things to keep it safe. And some people were like, yeah, barracudas are good, barracudas are not so good to eat. We didn't know it at the time, but apparently after like 36 inches or getting close to that, they have like parasites in them, and they're like really not good to eat. Which is what ended up happening. Ben told me later, and Essentially, he um, became biofuel for the world, I guess, because he used it for for the trees and stuff, I guess. Um, and yeah, so I took Ben home that night, and that's how we got the fish back home. Realistically, we should have taken the fish a whole lot earlier than we did because you don't want the fish to go bad. So as soon as you bleed it, you need to like put it in a cooler, and hence the reason why I have a cooler now, so I can keep fish in there. Worst case scenario, I'll cut the fish in half and then stick both ends in there because um, better safe than sorry with fish. But yeah, that was the first story. We started fishing in the morning, took my buddy to the airport, and then we came back. We got a triggerfish and a barracuda. Um, Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more.